there has, for the past few decades, been a movement to destigmatize mental illness. And I think that that's an incredibly important movement. I think that people should not be stigmatized for having mental issues or having some sort of mental illness. I think, however, that a lot of the way it's been done is as ridiculous as queer theory, as ridiculous as postmodernism. And I'll back up for a second. So postmodernism, of course, is the notion that stories, discourse surrounds our everything in society. And so you can look at Columbus as a brave explorer or as a conqueror and sadist and slaver, and which of those discourses is going to win. And postmodernism takes the question of, it's interesting that there's all these different discourses, and has the stupidest solution possible, which is all of these discourses mean there's no reality, but only discourses, which is just ridiculous. Queer theory does the same thing, that because prescriptions against homosexuality are bad, which is a fine thing to say, therefore all prescriptions against all forms of sexuality are bad, which is absurd and horrible because it leads to the support of pedophilia and other atrocious things. And likewise, there is a lot of movement to argue that because mental illness has been stigmatized, and because mental illness, that label, has been used to harm people, dissidents in the Soviet Union, women. I know that my abusive father threatened to lobotomize my mother if she resisted him. And so because it has been used for bad purposes, therefore, there really is no such thing as mental illness. And that's as absurd as the others. That I have, years ago, this is a small incident, but it sort of exemplifies. I was going to be away from home, and someone was going to go into my home to do something. And that person didn't want to do it, and so asked another person who had a mental illness to do it instead. And that person's issues caused that person to forget to close the door. And my cat got out and died. And that's, many years ago now. But the point is that I had a conversation with the person. He was a really nice guy, the person who had let the cat out. I had a conversation with him afterwards saying, look, we have to acknowledge that there are things that you can't do and things that you can do. And failing to acknowledge that is what killed the cat. And he got really upset and was like, don't stigmatize my mental illness. I was saying, I'm not stigmatizing it, I'm acknowledging it. And it's just like, I have Crohn's disease, and you should not have me do something. Crohn's disease gives me diarrhea. And so I should not be given tasks that require that I not defecate for 12 hours, because I will not be able to do them. And you, just because yours is not a physical, an illness that manifests, my mom had visual problems that made it so she couldn't drive in a big city. And that didn't make her a bad person. It made her a person who would live in a small town. And just because your illness does not manifest in a physical sense, but a mental/emotional sense, that doesn't make you a bad person. But at the same time, we shouldn't pretend that it doesn't exist, because if we did that with my mom, she would cause a car wreck in Chicago. And if we did it with me, I would poop all over. And if we do it with you, then the cat dies. And so my point is that I think it is, I had a couple of friends who were blind back in the late 80s, early 90s, and they used to laugh and laugh and laugh when people would say, like, can I use the word disabled around you? They're like, yeah, of course. I'm blind. I can't see. That's a disability. I it makes things so that they are difficult in that way. You should not expect me to drive your car. Which, by the way, I had one of them drive. We got in a parking lot. One of them always wanted to drive, so we got in a parking lot. She drove my car for a little while. Anyway, the point is that I think that there is tremendous harm being done by pretending that, yes, people with mental illness should not be stigmatized, but we should also not pretend that the mental illness does not exist.